Gundam.tk presents HG Zedas. Hey again everybody, it's Robert184, 2Rs, 2Bs from YouTube and Gundam.tk, and my review of the high-grade Gundam Age Zedas continues. You've already seen the advanced grade is looking pretty dull over there. The parts were interesting, as was the unbox, but how is it going to work and transform? When he's all put together, here it is, the completed mystery bad guy of the UE. And overall, my first impressions are pretty positive. He's very back heavy just in terms of the amount of kibble that's sticking out in the back down there. These parts down on the ankles look good. The yellow hands really save this guy from being too dull, along with the shoulders and those parts there. And the head, so in terms of the colors, the pink isn't looking as bad as I thought it would. And overall, he does look like a more interesting version of the Gafran, although I'm not completely sold on the MS design. For posability with the legs, first you're able to bring them forward for a kick and hardly move them off to the side at all because they're just on a simple ball joint. Really disappointing considering how many fancy things they've come up with hip gimmicks for this. The knees are going to bend and give you that 90 and no more, although it does have that double bend, which hasn't caused any problems, even though I've tried it standing it up in a few different ways. The ankles are going to bend down like this, and in terms of overall mobility, they are able to move off to the side hardly at all, and forward and back, again, hardly at all. So disappointing attachments there and there. For the upper body, the first thing that you're going to notice is that these wings are going to always get in the way and they're a little bit hard to line up, and anytime you try to move them too much, this part here that has them attach on is going to split apart. So there really could have been a better mount mechanism there. Pretty much all you can do is bring them forward and back, and you can hardly use anything else. In terms of the shoulders though, you can spin them all the way around if you choose, and they are on that cool pivot point, which looks good. From the top, you could reach across, and if you reach under that part, you can almost touch the other shoulder, but the elbows are going to work well, bend up, give you the over 135, have various menacing looks, and the chest is not going to have too many things that move except down here, which when you line it up, you may have a little bit of difficulty getting everything to line up at just the way you want, and these gray parts may end up collapsing in and touching each other more often than you'd think. For looks and height, how do you like it compared to the Gafran? First of all, for height, it's pretty much identical in head and in terms of commander's antennas up there. In terms of looks though, the Gafran shoulders seem to have a little bit more detail, although you're going to get the color in here and they are larger. The arms on the Gafran and the elbows don't seem to bother me as much as they do on the Zedas. But the skirt, I have to give the edge to the Zedas over here, because the Gafran skirts, even though they do offer you more posability, just come across as looking a little bit lame. In terms of the legs, you do see more of it from the Zedas, and overall, I think he does look like a sleeker, faster, stronger machine, as he should. But actually, there's a lot of similarities, and you can see them, but I think in terms of head, I'd probably give the advantage to the Gafran just because it looks a little bit more intimidating. Next to the Age 1 Titus, which remember is a little bit shorter than the Age 1 normal though, the Zedas is much bigger, larger, and it even looks more filled out and more powerful than this guy who's already supposed to be a hulked out version. In fact, it's much more in line with a later UC suit, or a somewhat later one, the HG UC Jesta from Gundam Unicorn, the OVA, and you can also see just the amount of color details that are different here with the HG UC Jesta, who also, I should mention, plays Captain Grudek in my anime reviews of Gundam Age. In terms of armament, the easiest thing to do is just to add the sword/tail on there, and then pretty much everything is going to be built into the hands in terms of attack. The overall posability is actually pretty limited just because the ankles are not going to move very much. You can see that they're sort of flopped off. And the fact that the hips are only going to be attached on for a poor ball joint. The knees weren't causing the problems that I expected, but really don't expect to do much more with ground poses than what you're seeing here. And the only reason it's standing up with its ankles that poorly supported is the fact that I'm cheating and using the tail as a third leg of support. To arm up the sword, you'll just detach it from the back and then plug it here over the beam Vulcan. And without the tail on for support, you're going to have to bring the legs in and not try anything too fancy, but that comes across as a very awkward way to hold a sword just hung underneath the palm of its hand. When on the box, they don't show off too many cool poses. That's usually a pretty good indication that there's not that much you can do with this. I could fix up the wings a little bit there, but the hands do look good, and you can twist the chest more than I thought to the side, and it doesn't look terrible in place there, but it's not necessarily going to be all that dynamic. I wonder if an action base and getting it aerial will help. And the answer to that seems to be a very firm no. For the simple reason that that's where you attach the tail onto, but this is where you're supposed to attach the action base, and if you use an action base like the ones that come with the HG00 or the Nobel Gundam as in this case, it's not going to work because it's not going to plug in at the right angle. I wonder if the Superman will work, but if you have an action base too, because you can adjust which way the top is actually angled at, you should be able to get him supported, although I wonder if that's going to cause problems and cause him to fall off a little too easily. And this Superman base with the extender seems to be doing the job of keeping him up in the air, but in terms of mobility, again, just the legs aren't all that dynamic and the sword looks a little bit awkward. So on the air or on the ground, not too many exciting poses, I think, that you'll get out of this guy. To transform this guy into flight mode, you know it's not very encouraging when the first step is to bend the arms up at a 90-degree angle. Yes, that's most of the transformation you're going to see there. The next step then is to bring up this whole back part here, including the tail in, and then once you do that, you can spin these wings up if they're going to cooperate and bend them out. The upper body should look like this when it's all done, with the wings parallel to the ground, and then on to the lower body where you'll use that double bend there in the waist to bring everything back and then bend it here as well. Then for the actual leg, you're going to take the knee and slide it up and in Wing Gundam style, and then bend the toe. And then I have to ask you the question, is this officially one of the worst transformations in all of Gundam? It sort of just looks like he's doing the doggy paddle in the pool with his arms up there, his head clearly exposed, and the fact that even if you have an action base 2 at the right angle, he's going to want to flop over to either side instead of having an actual proper attachment point. With this base I've got him at, he could only rocket to the moon. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up my review of the mobile suit and its flight mode there as he stands up at a 45-degree angle. Yes, it would look better on a better action base, but compared to the Gafran, which at least gives you a beast mode, this one doesn't look too hot. Which anyway, you can guess is going to be reflected in my final verdict. So stay tuned for all the good and bad things all listed in one place, so you can make a call as to whether you like this kit or not. But of course, I'd love to hear from you right now with a comment down below, and please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you with the next and final part. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.